Basketball, they've had some bad losses this year. This one against Minnesota, honestly, up there is one of the worst.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Yeah, this was not good. This was not good. I believe it's the fewest points Oregon has scored in a game this year, and that is indeed the case. 61-44, the final score. Oregon put up a pair of 57-point efforts against Washington and UCLA in back-to-back double-digit losses, but 44 points, it was a rough watch. And look, the team's been a rough watch, unfortunately, for a lot of the season. Injuries are a part, but not all of it. I got to credit Minnesota for the game plan they came into it this game. Admittedly, I haven't done a lot of film study on Minnesota basketball this year, but I think that their coach saw what I've seen a lot of this year, which is Oregon is not a good passing team. Minnesota statistically a great passing team. The broadcast was talking about that. They had 16 assists on 22 field goals. Oregon had 14 on 20. That sounds good. Oregon had 12 turnovers in the game. So they forced 13. So defensively, this was not a game that you could be unhappy with the effort if you are Dana Altman. Offensively, this was just dreadful. I mean, it was truly awful. And the number of times that Oregon had to make passes against the zone, and they were there. The opportunities to make passes were there all throughout the game. And Oregon just couldn't make them consistently. There was a point in the second half, and maybe a little at the end of the first. Minnesota switched it up between a 2-3, but they ran a lot of 3-2. So a 3-2, somewhat, though not exactly like a 1-3-1. Once you get past the 3, which is easier said than done, there are a lot of opportunities to score, but you have to be a respectable passing team, and Oregon is just not. And this goes to something I've talked about when discussing this team this year. There is just not enough skill top to bottom on the roster, and they just don't play cohesively. I think some of that has been the injuries, guys being in and out of the lineup. This was another game, of course, no Shellstat for the rest of the year. You had Ige Demir still out, Devon Pryor is still out, so they're missing some of the guys, and they just haven't played together a ton this year, and that's what it looks like, because the number of times that passes on the baseline were there and weren't executed, or lobs on backdoor cuts with well-executed plays against the zone drawn up by Dana Altman and the staff, they were there and they just weren't executed consistently. And then the other problem that really stood out in this game, Oregon's effort on the interior was just pitiful. Defensively, overall, 61 points. I don't care who your opponent is. 61 points is a good, solid defensive outing. This was a Minnesota team that played 6 guys. 6 guys. One hand and one finger. They played 6 guys in the game and beat Oregon on their home floor, who at least were able to roll 9 guys out there. Jamari Phillips only played for 2 minutes, but Oregon shot the ball dreadfully, 2 of 20 from 3. They used all their made threes against Penn State when they knocked down a season-best 14. And then they came into this game and couldn't hit anything from beyond the arc. You know, Evans hit one to give Oregon a 30-29 lead. Minnesota took a timeout, went on a 7-0 run, and then never trailed after that. And that was kind of midway-ish, not quite through the second half. So, yeah, it was a rough game. Nate Biddle made 1 3 in the first half, and that was it. Takai Simpkins, his worst game as a Duck. That certainly didn't do Oregon any favors here. Everyone's going to have a bad night shooting the ball. He was 0 of 10 from the floor, 0 of 5 from 3, no points, 2 assists, 4 turnovers. I don't know what the plus minus was. That couldn't have been very good. I'm a Takai Simpkins fan, but man, the Brennan Rigsby legacy matchup here goes to the Golden Gophers. And I think the most frustrating thing for Dana Altman that he's going to look back when he goes through the box score, Oregon had a depth advantage and a size advantage. The tallest guy on Minnesota was 6'9", and Oregon had 6 offensive rebounds against a zone where it's usually easier to get offensive boards. Minnesota had 13 offensive rebounds. They just kept getting second chances over and over and over again. This was an ugly game. Kwame Evans played well, 12 points, 9 boards, 4 assists to just 2 turnovers, a steal, and a block. Very Kwame Evans type game, 1 of 2 from 3. As I've pointed out with him before, he has good games when he's not actually creating offense, when others are creating for him. He's cutting to the basket, he's rolling, he's spotting up for 3. And when he does that, he's good. But, Kwame Evans as an offensive threat on a good team, as we've seen the last couple of years when Oregon's made the NCAA tournament and Evans was a part of both those teams, he needs to be your 4th best player. He has just not progressed offensively. I mean, he had a run out in transition where he let a guy, it was Minnesota's best player, who's pretty good, Isaac Asuma. He had a run out, should have been able to just throw it down, got the ball swatted off his leg. I think it actually was off his leg. They call it last touch by Minnesota. I don't think it was the correct call, but his offensive skill has taken a step forward this year, but it's not to the point where he's a creator for himself. So Nate Biddle had moments, but also just didn't look like he was 7 feet tall going against 6'9" and 6'6" guys out there. And, Biddle's a really good player. And if you looked at the box score and you see, wow, 4 assists, 1 turnover, Nate Biddle, great day passing the ball. No. That has not been a strength of Nate Biddle in the past. And whoever Oregon has as their starting center, and I'm sure Dana Altman will keep wanting to run his offense through a big man. He always has. He's got to find someone who's a better overall passer. Biddle just doesn't handle double teams well and does not make a lot of passes to find shooters. His passes were finding Kwame Evans on the baseline or Sean Stewart for dunks and floaters, which was he did well in that regard. It's just, it was rough. So a couple long-term takeaways that I've got after this game, because this was not good. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. So if you look at the NBA standings, you feel like you know who's going to win it all and break through this year, place a futures bet and apply that profit boost and you get a chance to go to the finals in person. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open? Not anymore. Indeed sponsored jobs has got you covered. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. That's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. It was a heavyweight showdown between number 3 South Carolina and number 7 LSU, and the Gamecocks rose to the occasion. South Carolina secured a hard-fought 79-72 victory to stay atop the SEC standings, using a balanced offensive attack to outlast the Tigers. Tessa Johnson led the way with 21 points, while Raven Johnson added 19. Medina Okot dominated the paint with a double-double, finishing with 12 points and 17 rebounds, while Joyce Edwards chipped in 10 points to round out the scoring. With the statement win, the Gamecocks now turn their attention to a road matchup at number 23 Alabama on Thursday. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Okay, so Oregon's 9-17 on the year. Doesn't sound right. The stack of L's, they've lost 11 of their last 12 since winning a Big Ten game on the road at Maryland. Very nearly won at Rutgers. 11 of 12. I remember when Oregon had a 5-game losing streak last year and the sky was falling. They figured it out and got to be a 5 seed. It might have cost them a trip to the Sweet 16, by the way. If they'd been a 4 or a 3, perhaps they would have played an easier team in round 2, gone to the Sweet 16. Anyway, I want to say Oregon will get to 10 wins. I really don't know. They play at USC on Saturday. Then they host Wisconsin next week. Then they play at Northwestern, at Illinois, and hosting Washington. At USC, they're not winning that game. It's not impossible, but they're not going to. Wisconsin at home, that's an NCAA tournament team, so no. At Northwestern, that's feasible. At Illinois, absolutely not. Washington at home, feasible. There are 2 games that yeah. That's just that's where we're at. Like at this point, we're all just kind of counting down the days. I think for those of us that are basketball diehards, which I absolutely am, to when the season ends, so we can figure out what the offseason plan is going to be and what discussions are actually going to be had. Now, there was a graphic that went up on the broadcast tonight. Dana Altman, going back to his time at Creighton, 28 consecutive winning seasons. And the more time goes on, yeah, I'm as frustrated as anybody with how the season has gone. The more time passes, the more steadfast I continue to be that Dana Altman is not getting fired after this year. He's the best coach in the history of the program. He's done it for a long time. He's had a lot of success recently, back-to-back years in the round of 32. He's been within a breath of the Sweet 16 each of the last 2 years. I really don't think one bad year is going to derail things, but there are legitimate concerns, as I have expressed and continue to watch every single night with this team. They don't do the little things well. They're not very cohesive. They're not always making very smart plays, and in fact making the opposite on a regular basis. And then the roster construction is just poor. So yeah. I never thought it could get this low. I thought the worst it would ever be is what it was a few years ago, which is, could they get themselves back in the bubble? Can they do that? Never thought it would get here. So I hope they find another win and you just avoid the ugliness of a single-digit win season, but Dana Altman's 28-year streak is going to come to an end. And after that, I'll go into next year and probably say make the NCAA tournament or it's time to make a change, but we got to get there first. We shall get there together. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Till then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.